heads up. When I started doing Spirit Baby mediumship work, my mentor was really adamant about me getting in my body. And I wasn't in my body a whole lot, truth be told, because my trauma with fertility was such that I didn't want to be in my body. I didn't want to notice every little nook and cranny, every little thing that bubbled up. The body does hold memory for trauma, and I really encourage you to do some trauma work before you really dive deep into clairsentience. Welcome to The Reluctant Medium, where we cover the gamut of out there conversations. With an open mind and a curious heart, we want to talk about it all. From psychic phenomena and energy medicine to beings from other star systems and out-of-body experiences. You'll find a great balance between grounded science-backed topics and others that science hasn't quite caught up to yet. I'm your host, Dr. Maria Rothenberger, a psychotherapist by trade and a reluctant spirit baby communicator. And hey, even though I'm a medium, I'm not buying everything folks are selling. I just have a voracious appetite to know more about what I call the world of the weird. Join us on your favorite podcast platform or watch on YouTube at The Reluctant Medium. I'll see you there. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Maria Rothenberger, your resident reluctant medium and host for this podcast. Today, we are on episode 3 in a series of Spirit Baby communication tools. This is such a good time. In the first episode, we talked about the absolute importance of meditation. In the second episode, we talked about dream work. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the clairs. Now, the clairs are important tools to communicate with the other side. That is fundamentally how we communicate beyond the veil. However, it is most important to start with meditation. And the dream work is really that place where you are practicing getting out of your head and just being in that, it's a theta brainwave state, being in sort of that place between sleep and waking. And you're far more capable of receiving information from the other side in that state. But the clairs are when you are more in a waking state. So maybe an alpha brainwave state. When I do Spirit Baby communication, I always begin with a meditation, and that helps me get my brainwave activity down. I'm probably not quite in that theta state where I'm like between sleeping and waking, but I'm really close, probably close between theta and alpha state. And so it's much easier to see beyond the veil, so they say, when you're in that state. And the clairs are really accessible. So we're going to talk about what the clairs are in a second. First, I just want to suggest, if you are interested in really diving deep into all of these tools and a lot more in a really safe, small group environment, consider joining the Spirit Baby Foundations training I've got going in September 2023. Just go to drmariarothenberger.com/Spirit Baby Training and sign up there to get more info. You will be among the first to know when it's coming out. But it's around the corner, and it is reserved for a small, tight-knit group of people. You also get connected on the Mighty Networks app, which is where the Miracles Happen community lives. There's a section there that's like a private section for only Spirit Baby Foundations trainees. And so you'll have access to the folks that are signed up for September 2023 and all of the alumni that have taken this course before. So it kind of blows my mind how expanded their connection to the other side is and how skilled they are. And it's like mind-blowing because they don't know it. I think often they're like, wait a minute, this and this happened. And I'm like, yeah, that's your communication. They're like, it is? It's like, yeah. Right. So we have a really fun educational environment, and we get to play with the clairs and dream work and meditation and all the other tools that we'll talk about in this series on the podcast. And, it's a good time. So come and join us. Again, drmariarothenberger.com/Spirit Baby Training. Okay. So let's start with talking about the clairs. We are going to cover first. Well, let me just tell you what the clairs are, what the ones we are going to talk about in this podcast episode. Now, there are a lot of clairs, but we're only going to be talking about a few. So the first one is probably the most common, claircognizance. That means clear knowing. Clair is a French word for clear. Claircognizance is clear knowing. There is clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairaudience, clear hearing, and there's clairsentience, clear feeling, which we will be talking about today. Now, clairsentience, I should say, can be broken down into a couple of parts. There's feeling like physical sensation, and there's also feeling emotional things. So that would be clair empathy and clairsentience on the body. There's things like smelling and tasting, like clairgustance is tasting. We're not going to cover all of those today. We'll just cover that, or we'll just consider that clairsentience, that's feeling in some way. Okay, what we are covering in this podcast episode is what each of those clairs are, how to develop them, and how to know what your prominent clair is. Most people have one, two, maybe clairs that they really are drawn to. I'm clairvoyant, so I see things in my mind's eye. And so that just happened to come naturally to me. And other clairs like clairsentience and those kinds of things, I really had to focus on developing. Okay, let's start with the most common clair, and that is claircognizance. Everybody has an example of when they have had a claircognizant hit. Like that thing where you think of somebody and then they text you or call you. Or you're thinking about somebody and you outreach them and they're like, oh my God, I was just thinking about you. Or that feeling, that gut feeling that you have. Sometimes it can feel like gut, but it's still considered claircognizance around like your intuition, like knowing I probably shouldn't walk down that street. Something's not right there. Or if you're walking down the street and you suddenly know something about somebody, or you know something about a building, or you know something about a vehicle, you just know it. And it pops into your head. It's a totally random idea or thought or notion. That is considered claircognizance. Now, most of the time, we're not able to verify, right, that we know a thing. So, for example, you're walking down the street and it pops into your head that somebody is sad, that they just experienced a loss. You aren't probably going to walk up to the person and be like, I'm just verifying my claircognizance. Are you sad? Did you lose somebody recently? Like, you're probably not going to do that. But other things are verifiable, like when somebody calls you after you just thought about them, or you know something about a building and then you check the history of that building. You know, there are things that are verifiable. And I really, especially in the beginning, encourage you to do things like that, to verify your claircognizant hits, just knowing. Now, some people will then continue to think and think and think, but is that real? I don't know, blah, blah, blah. That is not claircognizance. Claircognizance is a simple knowing. I just know it. Like if somebody were to say, what's my favorite color? And you just instantly know it's yellow. It's yellow. And they go, oh my God, how did you know? And you go, I don't know. I don't know how I knew. That's claircognizance. You just have a knowing. Now, how to develop claircognizance is really that thing where you get a cognitive, like a thought in your head, an instant thought. I always encourage through all of this training, by the way, all of these tools that we're talking about, I always encourage folks to have a journal dedicated to psychic development and write down your shit. Write down all of the experiences that you have when you're focused in this way so that you can see patterns and see, oh, yeah, I think that, I might be more accurate than I thought, or things pop into my awareness more than I thought, always write it down. So when you get a claircognizant hit, write it down and then leave it for a little bit. And then go and verify or if you're able to, right? Again, you're not going to, move into somebody's space uninvited and ask them questions about themselves. But later, verify the things that you can. One of the most interesting and I think fun ways to develop claircognizance is to get into a meditative state with the intention of answering a question for yourself. So like touching base with your higher self, or maybe not even having that intention, just saying, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to find the answer to X. Have a pad of paper and a writing utensil handy, and with your eyes closed, just start writing. You could also open your eyes, I suppose. Just start writing and don't even think about what's coming through on the paper. Just start writing. It might be gobbledygook. This is called free writing. That it doesn't matter if it's gobbledygook. What matters is that you are developing your clear knowing, your claircognizance. Just write down every single thought that pops into your head. So this is the opposite of like a typical, what people think about meditation. You're supposed to empty your thoughts. I think that's bogus, by the way. But anyway, it's the opposite of that though, where you really attend to the thoughts that are coming in and just write them all down. Just write them all down. Eventually, you're going to get into a rhythm and a state where the thoughts are not your own, and you're just recognizing them. Like if you were having the thought, I don't know what to make for dinner tonight. I wonder if that's in the freezer. I can take that out, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, purple pops into your head. Well, what does that have to do with making shit for dinner? I don't know. Eggplant? I don't know. You start going there, write down the purple part. Just write it down. Eventually, you're going to see this happens more and more as you open more and more, and you are just developing your claircognizance. And eventually, when you have a question in your mind, you have question X in your mind, the answer is going to come through in automatic writing. It's really fun exercise to do. And again, put that in your spirit baby communication or psychic development journal. Have one dedicated for this kind of work and, see what happens. That's one way to develop your claircognizance. Okay, let's move into clairaudience. Now, a lot of people, both sight and hearing, folks are like, I need to hear something, I need to see something, because for some reason, seeing or hearing something is more strong or it's more evidentiary for them. And I'm here to tell you that when you really look for or you're hearing for something, you're really giving it so much effort, it's actually harder for shit to come through from the other side, for people to communicate from the other side, for your baby to get through to you from the other side. So stop trying so hard, okay? Just pay attention to that particular clair and see what comes, or hear what comes, sense what comes, and don't try so hard. All right, so clairaudience is clear hearing, and this is hearing inside your head, not from outside of your head. Now, that is possible that clairaudience can come from outside of your head, or clairvoyance can come from outside of your eyes. But what I'm talking about here is developing the clear hearing, the clairaudience that's inside of your head. Some people, for example, like ghost hunters or people that go to different buildings to, investigate, they will hear things with their physical ears or see things with their physical eyes that are beyond the veil. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about spirit baby communication. And sometimes they show up with your, outside of your body. But let's talk first about inside of your body. So inside of your head, hearing. This is not like claircognizance where, let's just take a song, for example. Oh, very loud bird outside my window. I don't know if you heard that. Oh my God, let's just talk about a bird. Hey, let's talk about a bird. So there's a loud bird. That was a physical bird though. There's a bird sound. Okay. A claircognizant hit would be bird. Bird. I just know it. I know bird. A clairaudient hit would be either hearing the word bird, like somebody is saying the word bird, or you are hearing a bird. And it could be various ways, right? Like we hear birds in all kinds of ways. The chirping that I just heard, the raucous sound of many, many birds, the flapping wings sound. So we hear it in different ways, but it's inside your head. It's like you're not using, the sound isn't hitting your eardrum and then moving into your brain to be processed. It's like an instant hearing inside your head. I hear songs a lot. Songs will just pop into my head, especially if somebody says a word and I instantly have a lyric that matches that song and I hear it inside my head. So that's a clairaudient hit. Now, inside my head, there's a difference between hearing something that comes from you and hearing something that comes from elsewhere. So when you hear something that comes from you, like a memory, you will know that it's from you because you'll recognize it as, oh, that's a memory from my life, or, oh, that actually feels familiar to me, where a clairaudient hit that comes from somewhere else feels completely random and like you have no idea where that came from. I suppose there is some crossover there. Sometimes we have memories that we have no idea are in there. But for now, we're trying to keep it simple and recognize that clairaudient hits are generally pretty random and have nothing to do with you. Now, eventually, down the road, I was trying to keep it simple, but it's so complicated. Down the road, as you develop your psychic intuition and psychic abilities and mediumship skills, you will have symbols for certain meanings. Like if you hear the song, Mary Had a Little Lamb, and you begin to see patterns of why souls from the other side are making you hear Mary Had a Little Lamb, you're going to then know, it's going to be familiar to you in that way through your psychic intuition. You're going to be like, when I hear the song Mary Had a Little Lamb, it means this. So there is like you build a relationship with these symbols, these meanings. So just to, I was trying to keep it simple, but there is something down the road where it does feel familiar to you in this way. Like when I see a lemon, I think instantly of cooking in the kitchen. So that is the spirit world. They know that's my symbol for cooking in the kitchen. So they will show me lemons. Okay, so we've covered claircognizance, clairaudience, how to develop clairaudience. So this can be pretty similar to claircognizance, where you are meditating and you set an intention to receive information through your clairaudient psychic awareness, and then write it down. This is what I heard. This is what I heard. So it's just like if you were to close your eyes and pay attention to the sounds outside of your head, outside of your room, inside your room. That's a great way also to develop your clairaudient skill. But the difference is that you are meditating and looking for or hearing for information from the other side that resonates inside of your head. You're hearing things inside of your head, voices, sounds, songs, these kinds of things. You're just going to write them all down. You are really focused on audio, though. You're not focused on the claircognizance, the knowing. So now you're not writing down things that you just know or things that pop into your head. You're writing down things that you can hear inside your head. Okay, this is different. Also, I should be clear, I was a mental health therapist. This is different than like a psychosis situation. Usually, any kind of information that comes from the other side is quite loving and joyful. It's not, especially when you vibrate that high, it's not generally going to be fearful, fear-mongering. It's not going to tell you to do anything. It's not going to be like that. Any auditory hits that you get absolutely should feel safe. So I just want to make that discernment. And actually, if you are curious about the whole connecting with lower vibration energies, I talk about that in the very first episode of this series, Start Talking to Spirit Babies Part 1, because that's a big fear that people have. So I just encourage you to go back to that episode and watch or listen to what I have to say about the potential for connecting to lower vibration energies. It's not typical in spirit baby work because we're vibrating so high. So, but just to make that discernment, any clair hits that you get will feel loving, kind, joyful, or just completely neutral. It should feel very safe and comfortable. Okay, this is a good time to take a break. And when we come back, we will be covering the next 2 clairs. So hang out for a minute. Catch you on the other side. Okay, welcome back to The Reluctant Medium. We are talking about clairs today and developing them. We have talked about claircognizance and clairaudience thus far. let's move into clairsentience. Now, as I said in the very beginning of this podcast, clairsentience can be broken down into a couple of parts because clairsentience means clear feeling. Some people say they pronounce it clairsentience. But it can be broken down into several things because feeling can imply sensations, physical sensations on the body, and feeling like emotions. So, it can be broken down, but we're just going to be talking about it as the umbrella that covers all of those feeling things, okay? Clairsentience, now, heads up. When I started doing spirit baby mediumship work, my mentor was really adamant about me getting in my body, and I wasn't in my body a whole lot, truth be told, because my trauma with fertility was such that I didn't want to be in my body. I didn't want to notice every little nook and cranny, every little thing that bubbled up, every little twinge and anything. I just didn't want to notice anything in my body because of a history of trauma. And so heads up, if you have dealt with trauma, it is a little bit disconcerting to get back into the body. The body does hold memory for trauma, and I really encourage you to do some trauma work before you really dive deep into clairsentience. So again, my mental health hat, I just can't help it, man. I'm a medium, but I'm also a therapist. So I have to go there. Just, focus on that healing work first so that your body doesn't have such a big response to a traumatic memory. And then you can really begin to feel safe focusing on clairsentience. Okay. So clairsentience, babies actually are really, I suppose it depends on the baby. Spirit babies have their own strengths in terms of how they communicate with us, but they are often great at creating physical sensations. So a coolness or a warmth on the skin, tingling, tickling, moving one's hair or something like that. They can be quite good at that. So that's what clairsentience is. It's clear feeling. And let's just focus on the body for a moment. If you communicate with the spirit baby realm, and you can be very specific around that kind of prompting. You can be intentional about asking for a particular sensation on the body. Hey, baby, can you make my left palm tingle a little bit? And be in a meditative state, a calm state, and watch what happens. You may surprise yourself that it actually shows up. Now, heads up, again from my psychology place, when you intend for a thing to happen, it is entirely possible. Your body and brain, you're so powerful. You are so powerful. It is entirely possible that you can create that sensation yourself. Okay. So it's important then to practice being intentional about receiving that kind of communication when you are least expecting it. Be very specific about your intentions. Okay. So be in a meditative state, ask spirit babies, hey, can you create a tingling sensation in my left palm when I least expect it? Like when I'm not paying attention, but make it so noticeable that I can't deny it. Okay. That is a very specific intention, right? And babies listen. Any souls from the other side really listen. They understand the nuance and they know what you're saying, and they will attempt to comply so many times. They don't give up. They're very tenacious. So you may just be, driving somewhere and all of a sudden you feel your left palm tingling. What? Oh, I just noticed that. Is that a thing? Write it down and then look for that same thing at least twice more. Okay. That's my rule, my personal rule for receiving communication from the other side. I like to receive that at least 3 times before I consider it putting in my bucket of, okay, maybe. And then pretty soon the bucket gets bigger and bigger and bigger, or more and more fuller. So then I kind of can't deny that I'm actually receiving communication. I always have my healthy skeptic thing going on, like I'm open to this and I probably, I'm leaning toward this is a thing. And I still question. I think it's important and healthy and necessary to question and not pick up everything people are putting down, right? So, all right, how to develop clairsentience. Again, coming into a meditative state, actually just describe this whole thing. Coming into a meditative state, setting an intention for a particular sensation on the body and ask for it when you're least expecting it. Now, you can start with asking for it right then and there in a meditative state, but just remember there's a little bit of that caveat there where your brain and body are really powerful and you can create sensations in your body by your pure intention. So then it's difficult to discern if it's from you or from elsewhere. So you can start with that. Actually, just to play and see how powerful you are is kind of fun. But then I encourage you to ask for that from a point of view or like from when you're least expecting it. You're not paying attention and but it's noticeable. So write it down. Again, write it down, practice, play, write it down, and watch for patterns over time. You're going to see that some things become really meaningful. Over time, again, to move a little bit more into that complicated place, you're going to start noticing that certain sensations on the body mean different things for you. So for example, whenever I feel a full right side of my body tingle, that is a message from the other side. You're on the right track. That's my message, my symbol. For you, it might be your right toe tingles. I don't know. Or it gets hot. I don't know. I don't know what it'll be for you, but that's just an example. It's really important to pay attention to what the symbols are for you. And that's a little bit more like intermediate work. In the beginning, it really is just getting familiar with what these things feel like. Okay. The next one or the last one in this podcast episode that we're going to be talking about is my personal prominent clair, and that is clairvoyance, clear seeing. Clairvoyance is not as common as other clairs, but it can absolutely be developed. If I were to ask you to envision right now in your head your favorite pet's face, or I shouldn't say favorite, because I have 3 pets and they're all lovely. But your pet's face, your dog's face, your cat's face, your hamster's face, your gerbil's face, I don't know, or a loved one's face, you might be able to pull that up in your mind's eye. That's clairvoyance. The difference is, or that's clear seeing. The difference is when we're talking about psychic awareness, we're talking about that information coming from elsewhere, not from you, just to repeat what I've said before. So I actually like to have, one of the trainings that I did for mediumship was lovely. They were talking about having in your mind's eye an actual room or space where you do your clairvoyant work. And within that space, imagine that there's a screen, a white screen that comes down and all of the pictures are on that screen. And it's kind of like a whiteboard where it can be erased too. You can erase all the things and ask for new information to come through on your whiteboard. It's kind of a cool visual. But sometimes I don't use that and I actually just have images pop into my head, into my awareness. So clairvoyantly, by the way, if you do practice the skill, you will find that different entities come through in different locations. For example, spirit baby realm is always on my left side. They always pop in on my left side. Ancestors always pop in on my sort of northwest side, so like the upper left quadrant. And straight in front of me are guides, and straight in front of me but above are angels. Hardly ever do souls pop in on my right-hand side, and when that does happen someday, I'll be curious. Who are you and why are you popping through on my right side? But you may find that happens. And sometimes souls come from all around you. And so that's important too. You're just going to know that that's your personal experience of folks coming in from the other side for you. All right. So clairvoyance, clairseeing, it is images inside your head. It's little movies. It's full-blown movies. It's black and white. It's color. It's a quick image of something like a lemon, as I mentioned before, or a long drawn-out storyline, and everything in between. And it can absolutely be black and white. It can be color. It can be vivid color. It could be pale color. It doesn't matter how you receive that information. If you see it in your mind's eye and it's coming from outside of you, that is a clairvoyant hit. Now, how to develop clairvoyance. This is probably one of the most fun, I think, but I'm clairvoyant. So there's that. You can sit, again, coming into a meditative state and picture things that other people ask you to picture. So this would require a partner, right? Asking you to picture things, ask them to give you anything random, a place, a person, an animal, a plant, and see if you can conjure that image up in your head. Then I like to actually search Google for an image of that thing, because sometimes you don't know what a thing looks like. Like if I were to say, picture an echinacea plant, picture it in your head, see what pops in, and then go to Google and see what comes up. Oftentimes I'll get clairvoyant hits like that, and I'll be like, I have no idea what this is. I'm just going to Google it up for a second and see what I can come up with. I discovered what jasmine looks like through that. I actually smelled it. That was another clair hit. And then they sent me a picture of it because I didn't know what that smell was. And then I was able to look up the picture on Google and find that it was a jasmine flower. I didn't know. It's really fun to do that. Again, take notes, write it down. And over time, you'll start to see, I'm actually pretty accurate. Oh my God. When you are using all of your clairs, by the way, you're going to be able to pull in from different areas, right? So I smelled jasmine, and I said, I need to use a different clair because I have no idea what this is. Can you show me this? That's my strength. They showed me the jasmine flower. I looked it up. Some people might need it more with auditory. So clairaudience, can you tell me the word of that thing? And then they'll hear that. So also clairvoyance, it's really fun I like to take a deck of cards. I have 8,000 oracle and tarot cards now. It's another addiction. Crystals and cards. Oh my God, they're so fun. Which, P.S., we're going to be talking about in this series. Pick a deck and have them face down. Pick up a card. Don't look at it. And tap into your clairvoyant skill and see what you pick up. It could be a color. It can be a gender. It can be the energy of a particular, it could be female or masculine energy. It can be a color. It can be an emotion. You could be seeing an emotion of some kind. And then look at the card and see what matches up. I can tell you that in Spirit Baby Foundations training, the one thing that people really are able to pick up on immediately in clairvoyance is color. Okay. Now, this is one caveat, if you imagine the color purple and there is no purple on that card, think about what the color purple means to you. Okay. Does it convey a certain emotion? Does it convey a certain memory? Do you remember something with the color purple? And then look at the card and see if that matches in any way. Oh, this reminds me of a time when, oh my God, the card reminds me of it the same time. So again, you're going to start learning your own symbols for things. So the color purple in your mind's eye doesn't necessarily mean literally the color purple. It might elicit a memory for you or other meaning. Okay, let's talk for a moment about clairvoyance outside of your head. Okay, so using your clairvoyance with your eyeballs. One of the things that I like to encourage folks to do is to see color with their eyeballs. especially spirit babies, when you ask them to come into your awareness with your eyeballs, they are really good at conveying color, like their aura. And so one of my favorite practices is to, when you wake up in the morning, you're still in that state between sleep and wake, that theta brainwave state, look up at the ceiling. Now, before you go to sleep, you're going to set an intention. Spirit babies, when I wake up in the morning, can you show me yourself on my ceiling? Okay, so you're going to set that intention. Then when you wake up, look up at the ceiling, and rather than looking at the ceiling, you're going to look through the ceiling. Pretend that you can look at the sky through your ceiling. So you're really relaxing your gaze, and see if you can determine or notice any colors floating up there. Notice the location and notice the color. Some colors change. You can even notice the shape, and you can notice how large or small that color is, and write it down. Write it down and ask for that same thing the next morning and then morning after that until you have enough to where you're like, okay, I think this might be communication from my babies. Okay, let's finish off this podcast episode by talking about how you know, or you might know, what your prominent clair is. And yes, for those watching on YouTube, the lighting did change drastically because it is now 5 hours later. I had to stop recording and do some work, some clients, and then get back to this podcast recording because yesterday I recorded this whole podcast and it disappeared. Just gone. I'm convinced that there's something from the universe saying, no, redo it. So here I am redoing it. Okay, one of my favorite tools came from another medium that I once saw talking about this, and I use it all the time now. So I don't own it. She probably got it from somewhere else too, but I love it. If you go to the movies and you leave the movie thinking, that was great, and somebody asks you, tell me about the movie. What was the movie like? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? What would you focus on? Would you focus on the storyline, maybe the emotions about the movie? Would you focus on the visuals, the special effects, or all the colors, or any of that? Would you focus on the music, the score of the movie? Really think about that. What instantly comes to your awareness? And that is probably where you need to start with examining your prominent clair and start practicing all the things that we've already talked about in this episode with developing that clair as soon as you know, as soon as you know what your prominent clair might be. Now, I have to say, a lot of folks in the Spirit Baby Foundations training are surprised. They say, I don't think I see things. I don't think I'm clairvoyant. But then when they describe their experiences, they're actually clairvoyant. Or I don't think I'm clairaudient, and they end up describing things that are from clairaudience. So don't be surprised if this switches and goes back and forth, or if you have a couple of prominent clairs. It's totally fine. But in the beginning, it's useful to just focus on one so that you can really get a flavor and a feel for what it's like. Now, there are quizzes and things online. Just Dr. Google it up to see if you can discover your prominent clair that way too. There's lots of tools out there for free to see where you might start. Okay, my friend, I hope that this podcast episode has been useful for you, and I wish you total clarity with your clairs. And hey, come on over to the Miracles Happen community. Connect with all the other folks who have already done Spirit Baby Foundations training, and go and sign up for more information. drmariarothenberger.com/Spirit Baby Training starting September 2023. I look forward to seeing you there. Until then, my friend, be well. I'm hoping you got a useful nugget or two from today's podcast episode. May you be well, and I'll see you next time.